Hey guys, welcome back to the Missing Piece. And today we are reviewing the UFC 295 that happened a couple of days ago in the most famous arena in the world, Madison Square Garden, in New York City. So, um, let's go straight into it. The co-main event, which was obviously contested for the UFC heavyweight interim title between Tom Aspinall from Atherton in England and Sergey Pavlovich, who's from Russia. So we all found out how Tom Aspinall got the job done. It was via knockout in round one, which only lasted a minute or so. So Tom Aspinall did get the job done, and he's shown how usually Sergey Pavlovich gets his opponents out via knockouts in round one, under 2-3 minutes. So Tom Aspinall basically repaid him the favor. So the eventual result obviously was Tom Aspinall defeating Pavlovich via knockout in round one. It only lasted a minute and 9 seconds. And backstage, when Tom Aspinall was doing an interview with TNT Sports, he was surprised, saying that, "Oh yeah, I thought it lasted like 10 minutes, but obviously it lasted a minute and 9 seconds." Um, Speaking about Sergey Pavlovich, his last few fights was always getting his opponents out in the first round. So, and we knew that he was the second fighter to hold the least average time in UFC history, whereas Tom Aspinall was number one, and Tom Aspinall still holds that record. So that means it's looking good for the UK, as that is three UFC world champions from the UK. First being Michael Bisping when he defeated Luke Rockhold, which was also in round one and on short notice. Short notice. Second champion was Leon Edwards. He's from Birmingham, and obviously now Tom Aspinall becoming the interim heavyweight champion of the world. So yeah, speaking about that fight, um, Sergey Pavlovich eventually, well, in the first 30-40 seconds, he did land a clean left hook, which was troubling Aspinall, because I think Aspinall after the fight was like, "Oh yeah, he landed on me," and he was trying to readjust his mouth guard. So I think instinctively in Pavlovich's brain at that specific second was like, "Oh yeah, Aspinall's hurt. Let me charge onto him." And Pavlovich got a bit he got a bit gung ho, because he was trying to finish Aspinall after landing that left hook, because he knew that, or he suspected that Aspinall was hurt after that left hook. But Aspinall was like, "No, no, I'm not hurt. I ate the punch. I ate his power. I know what his power feels like. Um, I just had to readjust my mouth guard." And Pavlovich was like, "Oh yeah, I sense that he's hurt, but he wasn't." So Tom Aspinall just kept staying composed, and we all know Tom Aspinall has fast hands, and he moves like a featherweight in the heavyweight division. So that he landed two consecutive uh, 1-2 combinations to eventually finish Pavlovich. He landed that 1-2, which was right in the temple, which rocked Pavlovich. His head was spinning, and his feet were wobbled, and then, but obviously Pavlovich is still upright. So, but Aspinall after that was like, "Oh yeah, I landed this first 1-2. Let me land another one quickly." And both of the second 1-2s were directly on the temple. He didn't land clean, but it was directly on the temple, and obviously that messes your mind, because it lands in a very awkward position, especially on the temple. And Pavlovich went down, and obviously Aspinall got the finish. Obviously, it was a knockout, but obviously the he gave the ground and pound to obviously uh, stop the fight by the referee. So yeah, speaking of that, Aspinall now has a claim to fight John Jones, but we all knew there was a reason why this fight was for the interim, not for the undisputed, because John Jones was injured, um, which we previously obviously previewed, and his injury was obviously the bone or the muscle that was holding his shoulder in place. So obviously he injured that. He had surgery, but after the fight, well, after the event, when Dana White went to the post-fight press conference, he was reiterating to all the media, to all the journalists, that John Jones vs Stipe will happen when John Jones gets back, which means Tom Aspinall is in a sticky situation currently because he holds the interim champion, which by us fans we all know that interim title is one part or half of the undisputed world title, which obviously John Jones has. So do you think that John Jones, when he gets back, should fight Tom Aspinall? But Dana was like, no, no, no. Stipe is still the um, contender for the heavyweight champion, John Jones, when he gets back, which which towards my mind in like two, because Stipe, obviously he's the heavyweight goat. John Jones is known as the greatest of all time, no matter what division. So it does make sense. Obviously, before he got injured, it obviously John Jones Stipe, everyone was like, "Oh yeah, this fight's going to be interesting. It's the goat versus the heavyweight goat." But obviously, he got injured. Now the interim champion is now Tom Aspinall, so it leaves. It's a bit of a weird situation. Personally, John Jones, when he gets back, should fight Tom Aspinall, because otherwise Tom Aspinall has to wait. Let's say wait 8 to 10 months, because obviously John Jones had surgery. He has to be out for 8 months for rehab, and then he will be in training camp, and training camp will probably last 6 to 8 weeks, which is obviously like a month and a half, 2 months. So that means John Jones will probably be back at the end of the summer next year, which is a long time for Aspinall to wait. So I don't know if you've seen this before, but can an interim title holder defend an interim belt? We'll wait and find out. But Stipe is in a, obviously he hasn't he where his last fight was against DC 3 years ago. So obviously Stipe isn't active. John Jones beat Cyril Gann, but and then obviously this was his second. This was the first title defense as a heavyweight champion against Stipe, but obviously that didn't take place. So yeah, it's a very sticky situation in terms of what the heavyweight division has to offer right now. But there is some clarity in terms of John Jones is a champion. Tom Aspinall is the best of the rest, and we clearly can see that Tom Aspinall literally just took out, in his opinion, the most scary fighter in the UFC roster currently. So yeah, so let's see what happens. I think John Jones versus Aspinall should happen, but um, John Jones Stipe is a fight to make, which means Aspinall's in a sticky situation at the moment. Um, but yeah, that's the co-main event reviewed and broken down. Happy for obviously Aspinall, because obviously he's from the UK, and let's see what he can do after that. I think he should get the fight so against Jones. So, well, the question is, will John Jones accept? We don't know. Um, or will he just fight Stipe? We'll wait and find out. Dana still keeps his mind saying that Jones Stipe is happening no matter what. So let's see what happens. Now into the main event. Honestly, the main event was, honestly, it was fireworks. It was very intriguing when we previewed it, because it was a 50-50 fight. Both have their own styles that counter each other very well. But eventually we seen Alex Pereira, Portan, get the job done. The official result was Pereira defeats Prohaska via knockout in round two, 4 minutes 8 seconds of that round. So that means Anu Alex Pereira, light heavyweight champion of the world. Speaking of that, Alex Pereira, in terms of the records and and the skill set that he has, honestly, is breathtaking. Just to read out, I'll read it out in a bit. But speaking at him as a person, as a fighter, honestly, he's a special fighter, especially coming from the kickboxing background. Only having a few fights compared to elite MMA fighters, professional MMA fighters, and holding two belts straight away is insane. Um, so let's go into the stats. Obviously, he was a two-division Glory kickboxing champion. Now he's a two-division UFC champion, holding belts at middleweight and lightweight, and that was only done in 11 fights, 11 pro MMA fights. He holds wins over 4 UFC champions, which of course is Jan Blachowicz when he made his light heavyweight debut in UFC. Yuri Prohaska, who he beat on the weekend, who is a former Yuri Prohaska is a former UFC light heavyweight champion. And obviously he beat Adesanya last year at Madison Square Garden, funny enough, and Sean Strickland. He holds a record of 6-1 in the UFC. Um, and now he beats Randy Couture's record of the quickest fight to two UFC championships, so multiple weight class champion titles. I believe Randy Couture was a 9, whereas Alex Pereira right currently, well, he broke it and now he done it in 7 fights. So because he's 6-1, and that only took him 7 fights. He's the first ever fighter in UFC history to win titles at middleweight and light heavyweight. So that's another record on his resume, because it's difficult for a middleweight to move up to light heavyweight, whereas Pereira was a huge middleweight and perfectly fits into the light heavyweight division. Another record that he holds is, well, he joins Amanda Nunes as the second Brazilian to hold multiple weight, to hold 2 titles in 2 different divisions, whereas Amanda Nunes was bantamweight and featherweight, and Alex Pereira is middleweight and light heavyweight. And Alex Pereira is the 9th fighter in UFC history to hold multiple weight class titles. So yeah, those are all, well, most of the records that he holds coming off that knockout victory in New York City. So in terms of what he does next, light heavyweight division may have some clarity now, because when Yuri beat Glover a couple of weeks after that, he injured his shoulder, vacated the belt, and from there, obviously there was no clear solution or some clarity in the division. And then obviously Jamal Hill became the champion after Yuri. He suffered injury. I think he's still out. Well, obviously he was at the fight, and you were saying that, oh yeah, I'm on a different level. We'll wait and find out. But I think he's still recovering from his injury, or well, his surgery from that injury that he suffered. So we'll see what happens. But I think Alex Pereira could be the man to hold the division. But there are a couple of fighters that could challenge for his belt. Obviously, Yuri could come back, potential rematch, but I doubt that will happen. Jamal Hill is there when he gets back, because he was a former champion. Well, he was a champion before Alex. There's Magomed Ankalaev, but I heard that, well, especially on the night of the fights during broadcast, UFC are trying to rebook Ankalaev as Johnny Walker, because we all know what happened at that fight, because it ended in a controversial manner. So yeah, let's see what happens. Light heavy division, I think, ever since Jones and DC left the division, it's been very up and down in terms of, oh yeah, there isn't a clear title holder. Whereas I think Alex could do that, but obviously he has hit Jamal Hill, Magomed Ankalaev, Yuri Prohaska, that could potentially cause him some troubles. So let's see what can happen. Let's see what happens in that division. because before, when Jones was holding it, he was wiping everyone. Obviously, when Jones was having those little mishaps in his career, DC was the next in line. So them two were just like exchanging stuff. So yeah, so I think light heavy division has more clarity currently. Um, in terms of his call out, I think it was a funny call out because obviously Alex doesn't speak uh proper English, but he said, "Adesanya, come to daddy." So that was very funny when he said that. But post fight, during media, he was like, "Oh yeah, I respect Adesanya for what he's done." So yeah, I think it wasn't a malicious attack. I think even when in Izzy's reaction video, he was just laughing alongside his brother. So yeah, I think obviously they do have a history together in terms of the combat sports um, realm, but as human beings, people, um, they respect each other in terms of what they've done and accomplished. So yeah, so that's the just the overall review of UFC 295 at the most famous arena in the world, Madison Square Garden in New York City. So yeah, that only means that there's only one pay-per-view left of the year, and it's a big one because UFC are looking to end it with a bang for UFC 296, which is in Vegas at the T-Mobile Arena. And as um, fellow people that live in Birmingham in the UK, Leon Edwards has the opportunity to have two title defenses in the welterweight division. Obviously, first being the trilogy with Usman at O2 Arena earlier this month. No, earlier this year, sorry, in March. And his second title defense is against the American Kobe Covington. So that fight week will be very, very insane. Won't get into too much detail currently, but that would be a interesting fight, especially with the other fights on the card, as it's a very, very stacked main card as well as prelims. So yeah, that's the UFC 295 covered. Hope you guys enjoy the fights. I will catch you next time on December 12th, fight week, December 16th, fight night, and then also the review for UFC 296, which is the last pay per view of the year. Let's end 2023 in a bang. See you guys.